Now, Nigeria is nicknamed the Giant of Africa. It would like to occupy a lofty position on the continent, sort of like one of the country's most famous landmarks, the grey monolith known as Zuma Rock, which towers above the cars on the motorway below. But the reality is rather different. The country is once again in the spotlight because it's marking its 61st independence anniversary this weekend, a time to look back at past mistakes and look ahead with some hope. But Nigeria has innumerable destabilizing challenges, and today, as the writer Chigozie Obioma points out, beyond being the most populous black country on earth, the machineries that make a nation exist, let alone succeed, have all eroded, overtaken by a culture of incompetence, dignified ineptitude, and destructive selfishness, all of them playing a major role in the country's unraveling. And all the while, the rest of Africa, the black diaspora, and the world look on, waiting, hoping that the Giant of Africa will rouse from its reveries and fanciful musing and restore the trampled dignity of the black race. So, whither Nigeria on the global stage, 61 years after independence? Well, my first guest should know he is Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former permanent secretary in the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and former diplomat who served in many countries, including Togo, Ethiopia, Belgium, the Netherlands, Namibia, Sierra Leone, and the United States, where he represented Nigeria as Consul General based in Atlanta. And Ambassador Keshi joins me now from Lagos. Absolutely delighted to have you, Ambassador. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Charles.
I can't hear you at the moment. I hope we've got audio there. But how important is it for black people all around the world for there to be a first world black nation that is worthy of international respect? You've been in so many countries, in Europe, in the United States, across Africa. Tell us what your sense is of the importance of that.
Charles, if you recall that at independence, there was so much hope, so much great expectation about this country. And when our first prime minister and the only prime minister appeared on the world stage at the United Nations to actually launch the country post-independence, people expected so much, tremendously so much from this country. And I'm not too sure who started the whole idea of black power, strong black nation, but I'm sure that around that same period, when our economy was even our GDP was far greater than some of the world powers today, that hope, that expectation was created, and that ended the initial respect, that we got at post-independence. And of course, subsequently, we showed our determination of what we can do, and until around the 1980s, when things started falling apart. In fact, things started falling apart from the first coup that took us to the Civil War, and the rest is history. But significantly, in spite of all these challenges, I think it's only fair to say that, yes, we may not have done so well. We may not have been at where the world expected us to be at 61. But the truth of the matter is that when you look at the history of what we've done in the last 61 years, there have been successes, even around the globe, and there have been significant failures as well.
I want to come back to Nigeria in a minute, but what I am eager to establish, Ambassador Keshi, based on your enormous diplomatic experience and the number of countries that you've been, particularly those in Europe, the Americas, and so on, is the link between creating a first world black nation and getting the respect of the rest of the world. It doesn't matter whether it's Nigeria or another country. I'm wondering if it could be said that the marginalization of blacks in America, for example, Europe, or anywhere in the world won't end until there is a first world African nation to lift up people of African descent.
No, Charles, I will not go that far. I'll simply say that that not only do we have the potential to become, a super African superpower and the rest of it, which we have the capacity, to achieve. But what I believe is that if Nigeria grows to its full potentials, it will certainly take along with it a number of African countries, and that is where the global recognition that we'll be seeking since independence will come from. As of today, despite the challenges that we face, and the whole world knows it, and some are very disappointed, generally we are still a very much respected country around the globe, particularly in this part of the world, in Africa. We are still very much respected, that I can assure you. And I had my first time, I had an experience in February to recognize that this is a country that is respected, and the world still believe that Nigeria holds the destiny of, say, Africa and the black race in its hands. So if we grow up to maturity and do the right things and the necessary things that we are expected to do, or we have been expected to do since independence, we will create so much hope, not just in the people of this country, but throughout the black race. At least they know that there's a country, a black country that can speak for the black race anywhere in the world.
Well, the point, Ambassador, is that you're saying what is pretty obvious. You're saying if we achieve our potential. That's not the point. The point is that that potential has not been achieved. And as a result of not achieving that potential, there are problems that have developed, not least the perception of Africans in general and Nigerians in particular, and the fact that they have wasted that potential so far.
No, I don't think the perceptive, as you call it, is just about Nigeria alone. It's generally about the lack of development in Africa. But the point I'm trying to make really is that we still have the potential to be great if we set our mind about achieving what we should have done years ago. And the point I'm making is that we still can do that. And that if we do that, we will take along with us a couple of African states, and would also raise the hope and aspiration of black people around the world, because there's a strong African country that they can look at and believe, as we did a couple of years ago, that this nation called Nigeria is powerful enough to be able to speak for the rest of the black race. I'm making the point that yes, we have not achieved our potentials. In fact, we are far from achieving our potentials. But I'm saying, if we grow to achieve our potentials, but we take along with us not just this federation, but we take along with us, we draw along with us, we drive along with us a couple of African states also. And the world will come to recognize that truly there is a great African nation that can represent the black race.
And where do you think things stand at the moment? We've got 2 days before Nigeria's 61st independence. Is this where it should be after 61 years?
Absolutely no. I like your introduction. Absolutely no. This is not where, if you have spoken to some of us when we were young, some 60 years ago or more, I don't think that this is what we expected. We had hopes growing up in this country. So many things were working out very well, in spite of the political tensions, at that time. But suddenly things seem to have fallen apart. But the tragedy of it all at the end of the day is that there's no sense of urgency, and no leadership with, with that capacity to pull out the country from where it is today. And I think that is the major challenge, that we face. How do we galvanize a new crop of leadership that can really take Nigeria out of where it is to the finishing line? That's
okay, well, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's good to have you with us. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Ambassador Joe Keshi about Nigeria's place in the world as the country marks 61 years of independence this week. Stay with us. Now let's continue our chat with Ambassador Joe Keshi, who's represented Nigeria on a diplomatic level across Africa, Europe and the Americas. His analysis of Nigeria's place in the world, of course, particularly significant as this country marks 61 years of independence on Friday. A country that to many is a paradox. On the one hand, beset by staggering levels of poverty, corruption, violence and mismanagement. On the other, according to one poll, the world's most optimistic nation. A country full of the energy and vigor of youth looking towards a future in which its economic, political and cultural presence will be felt ever more strongly on the world stage, but held back by its many failures as fellow Africans look on with dismay and disappointment at the black world's shattered promise. A country of enormous diversity and unbounded potential, but also of untrammeled chaos instigated by the gross recklessness of a corrupt elite. And Ambassador Joe Keshi, former permanent secretary in the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and former diplomat who served in many countries in Africa, Europe and the Americas, is still with me from Lagos. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador, for staying with us. When we look at all the issues, for instance, of racial injustice in America, you were in Atlanta, which has a very, very large black population, the deaths at the hands of police and all the talk about racism and discrimination, etc. Should we be looking more at the core issue, why black people have remained synonymous with the denigrating experience of racism? And that is because the black race really has nothing to show that can match the pace of development of other races.
Well, to some extent, yes. But look, I really don't think that when you compare the fate of black Americans in the United States, and that a significant improvement in Africa will change their situation, in the United States. I don't really subscribe to that because the black people today in the United States, very little, if any of them today has any connection, and do they care much about the continent itself. I think that what we need to do and what can bring pride, to the rest of the world is just for us to grow up. It's just for us to do the best we can to achieve our potentials. And the early part of your introduction in the second segment of this program is the truth. We have all what it takes to be a great nation. We have all what it takes to project the black race. What we require is who takes us across the finishing line. And that's the challenge we face, as I said, before we went on break. It is hard to get to that destiny, as we say previously, in our manifest destiny. How do we rise up from the crisis that we face today? How do we begin to address this crisis? Once we can begin to address this crisis, the economic crisis, the security crisis, the ethnic crisis, and all it takes to resolve this problem is to find a collective leadership that can take us across the finishing line. If we do that, not only will this country explode in every aspect of life, the success of Nigeria would also bring a lot of succor to the black race anywhere in the world. And I make that point that I made earlier, that if we succeed, I'm confident that we will be able to take along with us on that road, road to success, a number of African countries. Look, one simple example of the potential of this country, and why I talk of the leadership to take us across the finishing line, is the fact that today it is said that of the 94-something thousand setups or so in Africa, 45 or so are in Nigeria, especially in Lagos and Enugu. You can imagine if this country has the infrastructure, the facilities, and open up opportunities for young people who want to, go through that line of creating startups and the rest of them. And that's the challenge we face. And that's why we need that leadership that will open up the country, that will create the opportunity, particularly for the young people. And that will address some of the ethnic challenges that's in my mind, and I've always said this, obviously, for so many reasons, that are completely unnecessary. These are things we do in order to gain one advantage or the other. So it's a question of how do we now begin to find that inspiring leadership, that knowledgeable leadership, that leadership that is prepared to open up the space, create the opportunities, inspire people in this country, touch the good angels in all of us to be able to move this country forward. I'm so hopeful that even at 61, if we think that it's so bad, I look forward with hope that, one day we'll be able to get to where we want to get to. My only prayers is that some of these things happen in my lifetime.
Well, I mean, that's a good prayer, but I'm not entirely sure that that is going to be enough to get Nigeria where you're talking about, because, I mean, the painful fact is that even beyond Nigeria, most African nations and Caribbean nations are either collapsing or on the verge of collapse, and often depend on handouts to survive. And when you look at, for example, Israel, I mean, the reason why a lot of Jewish people are respected around the world today is because of the power that Israel has forced upon the rest of the world. And if you had a country like Nigeria, with all the potential that it has, being in a position like that, you would immediately command greater respect, whether it's in America or Europe or anywhere, for anyone of African descent.
Charles, the reason why Nigerians in the diaspora are respected, I'm sure you know this, is because it is said that they are about the best educated of the ethnic groups in the United States. What does that tell you? You can imagine if those guys who are making waves in the United States, for example, at home, they probably not to be doing as much as they are doing today in the United States. So you can imagine if, we can excel, we can do as much as we can in this country. You talked about Israel. Take a look at the leadership of Israel since foundation. Israel had some of the most courageous, inspiring, hardworking leaders. Very, visionary leaders that brought them to where they are today. And they've continued to have that set of leadership. And for those who think that leadership does not matter, it matters a lot. And that is what we are lacking in this country. We just keep going piecemeal, incrementally. What we need is a complete transformation. We need a transformational leadership. We need a visionary leadership who defines where we want to go to and then draw the roadmap on how we can get to that place and compel people to go along. And of course, along the way, we also need champions. Those who will, those who will help drive the whole program. As long as everybody has the opportunity, as long as there is fairness, justice, and equity, and everybody is certain that, look, I am part of this country, I belong to this country, I'm wanted in this country, I have great hopes and expectations in this country, I believe things will be all right. Look, take a look at countries all over the world. What has made them great? How have they achieved greatness? It is because of those who have provided the leadership, who have defined the vision of the country,
Okay.
and those who have stepped in to take them across the finishing line.
Okay, Ambassador Keshi, I always appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much indeed, and particularly poignant as Nigeria marks 61 years of independence. Ambassador Joe Keshi talking to me there from Lagos.